All right, so today we're going to talk about the north and south nodes in astrology, and this is both for the natal chart analysis as well as transits for those of you who want to get more information on either your north or south node transits. So before we get started, I do want to say that this is from a Western background. For those of you who want the Vedic interpretation, this isn't going to be it. I do recommend either Googling it or searching it on YouTube. Because, yeah, my background's Western. I do borrow from some of the Vedic principles and ideas, but for all intents and purposes, this is a Western interpretation. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at what the nodes are in the sky. So first of all, they're not actually anything. They're not visible. They're not an actual planet or whatnot. They're theoretical, or actually they're abstract points, okay? Now the points are essentially the orbital paths of the sun and moon intersecting. So you've got Earth here, you've got the ecliptic, which is the sun's path, and then you've got the orbital plane of the moon, which kind of is tilted like this. So there's the path in which the moon intersects the ecliptic, and those are essentially your north and south nodes. They're always moving in the chart. They take 18 years to transit the full zodiac signs. They're associated with the eclipses, which are very important because, as you would imagine, this would be the eclipsing points in the sky. One thing I want to say too, just so the information's out there, is that the solar eclipses can be associated with both the north or south node, depending, and lunar eclipses can be associated with both as well. So that's generally what they are, and the difference between the north and south nodes is that the moon's path, when it's, because there's a two-directional thing here, right? So the moon's moving like this. When the moon is going from south to north, that's the north node point, okay? So it's the same point. When the moon is going from north to south, that's the south node point. Okay, so essentially what you have here is, just by looking at these abstract points, is they're associated with eclipses, so they're transformational, right? You know that they do involve the sun and moon. So that's the merging and sometimes the push and pull between the solar energy, which is again that active consciousness, and the lunar energy, which is that receptive consciousness. So it's kind of like this constant push and pull kind of energy as well. As you might imagine, because the moon is going in a direction, the north node, which is associated with north, is our guidepost. It's where we're headed. It's what's being built in this life. It's what's being increased in this life. The south node would be what's being left behind, what's being decreased, and kind of where we're coming from. So you can see by this that it's a lot to do with our life path, especially the transformative life path, or the one that's associated with the fundamental aspects of our being, which is the sun and moon. So the north node in this example would be the path in front of us, whereas the south node would be the path behind us. And this is essentially what the nodes are in astrology. They also have to do with building of karmas, right? Because we are physical beings having this, spiritual beings having this physical experience, right? But we are here. And so we are building this sort of karma, this sort of physical experience, which is the north node. And then the south node is then at the same time, we're also releasing past karma. Now, south node can also be seen in terms of past lives, if you believe in past lives, because there's that, old karmic residue too that we're working on, or, finding that spiritual liberation through, which is essentially what the south node's all about. So in order to move into the future, we have to know where we're coming from. And so these are always opposite each other in the chart. And that's another synchronistic thing that's very important. Anytime you're dealing with oppositions in astrology, you have to balance. It's always involving the essence of balance, balancing duality. So that's a big part of these nodes, both balancing themselves together, right? So the north and south nodes, balancing those, but also balancing the north node in and of itself and balancing the south node in and of itself. So if we start by looking at this first with the south node, okay, which is where we're coming from, right? You might notice that this would be the area that you feel very comfortable with, because again, it's what we're used to. It's where there's been a lot of perhaps attention in past life or just major events or whatever. So there's a lot of energy here and a lot of comfort that we feel like going into with the south node. So it's important to realize that this is what's waning, right? This is what's being released. So the key with this is to really be grateful and really accept what you already do have in the south node direction. Otherwise, because our natural default is to go into that direction. Otherwise, we can get caught up into it and then there's no more growth in life. In order to have growth, we have to move into the north node. But the north node has to be balanced as well. We don't want to go to any over extremes because again, this is where we're building karma. So if we go too much into the north node, then we get really caught up into the material realm and kind of lose sight of the south node, which would be our spiritual selves, right? And that's spiritual liberation. So you can see here, when you have a balanced south node, when you're grateful for everything that you do have in regards to the past and the path behind you and things like that, then you're able to move into the north node much more healthfully, right? So once you have, it's kind of like in a progression. You want to really balance the south node first. Find that spiritual liberation, find that gratitude and acceptance of those energies, the house placement, sign placement. Then in a much healthier way, you'll be able to move into the north node without getting too overly attached or too physically caught up into those experiences. So that's essentially what they are. One thing I want to mention too is that the south node, and this is a Vedic, interpretation, is it represents the bottom half of it was a specific demon Svarbhanu who got cut in half. His bottom half is associated with Ketu, which is the south node, and the top half with Rahu, which is the north node. So the essence behind this is that, again, because it's that north to south energy, the south node there is this element of we don't see it consciously. It's very unconscious, very subconscious. And it's that aspect of life that, it's important for us to connect to on that level. We don't want to get too consciously involved. We try to figure out the south node too much. We try to bring too much of that conscious energy. It just creates confusion and we get caught up into it. So it's a spiritual process. It's about feeling it, releasing it, having that, gratitude, and through that, the liberation can come. Now, the north node is associated with the conscious aspects, again, with the north, so like the sun. So it's more of that brightening of energy. So there can be a lot of that. But again, it's a polarity, so we don't want to go to extremes with it. But that's a good place to focus your attention once you have that emotional, spiritual connection to your life. So let's go and look at this as an example. Let's say someone's got their north node in the second house, which would mean by default they have their south node in the eighth house. So the second house is about values. It's about the financial material things, and oftentimes too on a financial level, building our resources and nest eggs and things like that. So let's say this individual's life path is to grow and expand upon the material aspects and to learn more about their values, right? What they value in life. So that's a good way for them to consciously approach this. But in order to do that in a healthy way without getting too caught up into that material realm, it's important that they, again, come to peace with and accept the south node, which is in the eighth house, which is having gratitude for everything that they already have, involving transformation, involving healing, involving those deeper codependency sort of energies of the eighth. So the natural default for the person is to have that, transformation, is to default into, maybe feeling like they need more transformation, they need more healing, they need more codependency. But the truth of the matter is they actually already have that. It's already been sort of maxed out, if you will. So it's important for them to accept what they have there, to be grateful for it, and as best as they can, find that spiritual peace with it so that they can move into the north node, which in this case, the second house, in this much healthier sort of way. So you do the same thing with the sign placement. Let's say it was Libra south node, Aries north node. So here the person is, and these are qualities again, signs are qualities. So here with the south node, the person is learning to embrace the qualities they already have about mutual respect, mutual understanding, and justice, in order for them to move into the qualities of confidence, of self-assertiveness, of motivation, of self-willed energy of Aries in that healthy sense. So for them, it's important to consciously work on, learning those Aries qualities. And that's a big part of the nodes, is learning, because again, the north node is brand new to us. You might as well think of it as it's brand new to us in this life. So it's important to approach it with a dose of humbleness and wanting to learn more about it. Same with the south node, because again, we're not consciously, seeing it very clearly. So when we approach it with learning, we approach both with learning essentially. We're learning more about ourselves spiritually with the south node and more about ourselves physically or earthly with the north node. All right, so hopefully this helps. If you guys have any questions, as always, do let me know, and I'll see you guys all next time. Take care.